everyone, welcome back to another video with the Philological Faculty Academy of Linguistic Analysis of Front Page Newspapers, the PhilFac Academy here again. Today we've got a very special episode. We're going to be looking at the New York Times versus the New York Times versus the New York Times. Why am I starting with the Times of India? Well, just to emphasize difference. We're not going to analyze it, but it's not the most recent news. It's not from today or yesterday. It's from a few days ago. But as we've mentioned here at the PhilFac Academy, we're not actually interested in the news as a reality that's very, very recent. We're more interested in how front pages can create different perspectives or perhaps have a different focus on the same day. So on this particular day, the focus in the Times of India was Ukraine, but as you can see from the picture, Indian flag and obviously Indian people there. But today we're going to have a look at the New York Times, and we're going to start by looking at the English version of the New York Times, and then we'll compare the English version of the New York Times today, or for this day, with a slightly earlier version of the New York Times in English, and lastly we'll look at the New York Times in Chinese. So here it is. The New York Times on this particular day made the decision that the biggest news of the day to put on the front page was a rocket barrage that kills civilians. So we're going to go back to our ratings today. Now, it's interesting, like when I opened this up, the first thing I saw was the title. It's very big, it's front and center. But some people I've talked with have said that no, they were hit by the picture first. But as I saw the title first, I'll look at the title, and we can see that it's quite simple. You've got like a noun phrase here, rocket, barrage, and then kills, a very simple verb, and then object, civilians. So very simple sentence, obviously quite negative with kills, civilians, very negative. So I'm going to give that definitely a 5, maybe 6. Now we've had a 0 to 5 scale. That was for emotions, how much your emotions became possibly negative or sad or whatever. But I think we need to go into like the 0 to 10, where 10 is what I call reptillian, where it's very instinctive and either very scared or very angry or really not using your brain, your intelligent brain that much. And so this one here, I'm going to give a 6. I just think that why not more? It's actually missing an adjective right here. It could have said something like Russian. That's what it was like. Russian rocket barrage, and then it would project all of this negativity onto anything that's Russian. Like if I said this is a Russian cup and you'd read that, you would be, no, that's a Russian cup, man. What do you want a Russian cup? But it's not there. It's not there. It doesn't have that. It doesn't say anything about Russia or Putin, the president of Russia at the moment. It just says rocket barrage kills civilians. We'll have a quick look at this one here. First talks between Ukraine and Russia show no progress. Now that's unbelievably factual, really. Like first talks between this thing, this country, and this thing, this country, show no progress. Now maybe, show little progress, do not make progress, fail to make progress. This is a little bit more negative, but geez, I don't think we can really give it a 1 there. Particularly because it's not clear. If you didn't know the context, you really wouldn't know the fact that there's a war. It's not peace talks. There's nothing about peace talks. Make no progress. Could say like, Russian rocket barrage kills civilians and stops peace talks. And that would be going into full reptilian. But here I think we're very close to 0, like neutral presentation of facts of the day as seen by the New York Times, journalist or newspaper, whatever. I'm going to give it a half, not a 1. Okay, off to the picture we go. And we can see here what's interesting is that you've got like the contrast, the stark contrast of light here and then dark here, and then here it's proceeding from light to getting darker, and it feels like we're sitting down the bottom looking up at the light, and as one person commented, it's like in order to get to the light, to get out of this darkness, we have to negotiate these soldiers. So there is a feeling of negativity. It's very artistic. It reminds me of, I think it's called chiaro oscuro, oscuro chiaro. At some stage in European art history, this was quite popular. I know Caravaggio is an artist who used this. So you've got the very stark line of dark here, and then you've got the light. You can see there on the person's hair that there's light on the hair, but then there's the darkness here of the hood. Wonderful, wonderful contrast. Very artistic. Okay, so it's negative. I think I'll give it a 2. It's difficult to say. Should you look at it in the context of killed civilians? So they could have easily shown a picture of dead civilians. I'm sure there was someone there taking a picture, but fortunately for our psychological state of mind, Our emotional state is not there, but I will give it a 2. I'll go with a 2. So we can see here that the New York Times is really quite strong. It's a 6 and an 8 times by 5 is 40. So that was up what the Guardian was like a few days ago. It's a 40. What about the surrounding news? That's very interesting. We've got 500,000 refugees flee, which really is, that creates a lot of negativity. 500,000 refugees flee. So I'll give it, I don't know, a 5 or a 6. I'll go with this. I'll go with a 6. And then let's get an average. But if we come over here, we see something very interesting. It says about 500,000 on the right here, about 500,000. So here it's very exact, 500,000, 500,000. And here it says about. It becomes a little bit more approximate, which you might say is academic, like it's reducing that. It's about. It's making you think about the statistic. Refugees have fled. And that's fascinating. Like, what's the difference between refugees flee and refugees have fled? Well, please press pause if you want to think about that for a bit. It's very interesting. You know, verb tenses and ideational. My answer to that would be that refugees flee creates a picture of this happening now, which means it's unresolved, this bad thing's happening right now. Have fled means it's finished, and particularly in the context of the picture, like if you were really worried about someone in the Ukraine and they were a refugee trying to flee to Romania, and you saw, you know, the person you care about has fled, you would think, well, okay, I think that means they're in Romania. You wouldn't be sure, it's definitely not positive, but it's a lot more positive than refugees flee. So for me, that's absolutely fascinating. When it comes to like the emotional state of the reader, the possible emotional state of the reader when seeing this, is that on the same front page of the same newspaper, either side of a picture, you know, they register differently, about 500,000. I'm going to give that one a 2. Yeah, it says see where they've gone. They've gone. It's all safe. It's wonderful. And you can have a look at it and see where they've gone. Not where they plan to go, not where they're dreaming to go, but where they've gone. So this is actually like the end, really, of a refugee crisis. And this is a refugee crisis here in action. So completely different. That one's a 6. And this one here, yeah, I don't know, what, a 2 or something like that? It's definitely negative. I'll give it a 3. But it just seems to be like that emotional state, not the reptilian one of the 6 on the left. So 3 and 6 is 9. That's 4.5. So the total, 4.5 and 40, is 44.5. 44.5. Okay, so what I want to do now is, you can see that that's a lot stronger than the New York Times of before. It's really gone into Guardian territory. But let's come back and have a look at the previous article that we did see in another video, but I want to have a quick look now. Okay, so I'm quite stupidly not saving these pictures for later reference, so I had to take this screenshot from my own video. But this is from a previous day. We're not going to spend too long. But I just want to really highlight one aspect. If you look at the title, it's very long. If you come back to that previous video, 1, 2, 3, 4 words. This one here has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 words. It's got adjectives here in the Ukraine and Putin. It's got one, send troops, draws rebuke, so it's got 2 collocations of verb noun, and then it's also got a location with a very sophisticated idea of the UN. And as I pointed out in that video, it requires the intelligent mind to process. Here we can see that it's really gone into that non-intelligent mind, but there is another really big difference which you may not notice at first. And that is the presence of adjectives that do really connect the bad things with specific things. So here we've got Putin's order with Ukraine as an object. And the next one there, US and allies. Sorry, I might just move that there. US and allies. So again, a clear actor, US and allies, call out Russia's clear attack on Ukraine's sovereign territory. So Russia's clear attack, negative. Ukraine's positive sovereignty. Putin's negative. Ukraine enclaves, there's not much there. And you can see here that you've got Putin is there and Putin is there. And then we come over here and there's Putin again. And then there's Putin again. So quite a lot of Putins in that article. Putin, 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 Putin. New York Times from a few days prior to the one that we first analyzed today. When we come back to this one, it really does make you appreciate, first of all, the lack of Putin. So if you want, you can press pause and look for it, but I'll tell you that there is no word Putin there. There's nothing at all. They could have put here Putin's rocket barrage, They could have put that there Putin's rocket to connect that negativity with him, but they didn't. And when it comes to Ukraine and Russia, there are no possessives. Down here, a meeting between Ukraine and Russia. A little bit lower, you've got the bombardment, referring to the barrage, the negative, the killing noun, which killed. Okay, so it uses a relative clause which to give extra information, which is negative information. So bombardment's already negative, and it's added on top of that. Raised alarms on how far the Kremlin, there's a little bit of a connection. But again, it was very easy just to put the adjective Russian bombardment, Australian bombardment, Alaskan bombardment. You could put any adjective in there. And for some reason they haven't. Now here at the Philfac Academy, we don't talk about the ways. It is interesting to think about that. But yeah, that's a definite textual difference. Okay, so this brings us to the last analysis, again of the New York Times. It's of the same day. So far we've seen that in the Times of India, on the day of this barrage attack that kills civilians, this tragic event, no mention there. They've got a completely different focus there on Indian students. What about the Chinese version? The Chinese version of the New York Times on the same day. Just maybe you're not aware that you can actually read the New York Times in Chinese, in English, in Spanish, and interesting enough in Canadian. There's also a Canadian New York Times. Okay, let's have a look. Press pause and have a guess. If you're ready to have a look, let's have a look. Okay, so there it is. You can see again we've got a central picture, which is interesting straight away because if you go back to the Indian Times, traditionally you've had the main focus on the left, but I've noticed when things have gone online that there's been a move towards the center. And so here the English version has it in the center, the Chinese version of the New York Times has it in the center. And you can see another like textual difference or how they build the text is that there's no title here. This picture is linked, wait a second, this picture is linked to this one down here. And then, you know, straight away, okay, obviously context of the war and the involvement of Putin in the war, he's pictured here, the president of Russia. You know, the context does create negativity, but I don't know, should we separate the context from the picture? I'm not sure. Yeah, but if you looked at the picture by itself, it's very positive. It's not really, it's positive about, you know, presenting Putin and the president of China, but I don't know what to give it. I'll just give it a 0 because I'm not sure what it's doing really without the context. With the context, it is obviously guilt by association. That is obvious to me, maybe not to you. You might have a different opinion. Yeah. So that's going to be a 0. New York Times, the same day. This is the same day. And that title there is about Russia. I think that's invading. I'm not sure. It might be like incursion. My Chinese is, I got the advanced certificate, but yeah, to get that nuance, I'd want to be C2 a bit higher. Okay, so it's testing the relationship between the two presidents. According to this article, the invasion or incursion of Russia into Ukraine is testing their relationships. And, you know, that's quite calm. So it's a little bit in testing. I'll give it a 1. This one here, failed to proceed. That's very factual about the peace talks. This one here is about COVID. Yeah, so I think that's a 0, that's a 1. What's around it? A little bit, yeah, the Western side should let Putin know. Again, Putin, that was a mistake to start this war. And then you got Stop Putin, Stop War. You got a picture of Putin. Down here we've got Putin again. So look, I think I'll give this section a 2, maybe. Could be a 3. We'll give it a 3. Okay, so we've got 0, and then 3, 0, and 1, 4. That's like, let's say 1.3. So overall, it's a 1.3. Okay? Probably should be a little bit higher, I get the feeling overall. We have to think about culture. Like maybe for a Chinese reader, this is like explosive language. You know what I mean? Like maybe that peace talks fail to make progress in Chinese is something that really hits students. For example, when I was teaching Swiss, German-speaking Swiss in Sydney, in a wonderful, wonderful, beautiful beach, right, or next to a wonderful, beautiful beach in Sydney, you could ask them, you know, what do you think about this place? And typically they'd say, it's okay, it's okay. And I was quite shocked that how could you say this is only okay? I didn't say that, but another teacher told me, you know, you've got to keep in mind that when they say it's okay, it actually means it's really good in our language. That's how we'd respond in that context. But I'm still going to go out on a limb, even though I'm not an expert in China. I was a Chinese translator, but I'm not an expert. And I'm going to say that this is pretty calm and pretty passive. And just lastly point out, not about the point system, but just that interesting fact of linguistic presence of words that here in the Chinese version of the New York Times, we do see the proper noun Putin quite a lot, like Putin here and then Putin and Putin and Putin in the pictures. Whereas in the English version, as mentioned before, there was nothing there. So quite interesting that a few days prior to this, in the New York Times article, there was quite a lot of Putins. But on this day of the rocket barrage attacks or killing civilians, there was not one Putin here, and there were quite a few Putins in the Chinese one on the same day. So another interesting difference there. Okay, so I'll just come back to that slightly more happy picture there. Try and finish on a happy note that some people in the world where there's a lot of pain and suffering around the world, and obviously in the Ukraine where there's a war at the moment. It's good to know that there are some happy people, safe and sound, and I just really hope that all those suffering anywhere around the world now and yesterday and going into the future, I hope that things get better for everyone. Okay guys, so that's another presentation from the PhilFac Academy of Linguistic Interpretation. I hope you enjoyed that, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Take care.